Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome back to our No Code Ops live community show. It's great to have you back here with us. I can already see some people in the chat. So, hi, Stephen, and let us know if you're watching us right now. As I always like to say, I love for our events to be as interactive as possible. So, this is your opportunity. This is an hour that you have available for you to not only get to learn from our expert speakers, but also to start networking in the chat and getting to know the other people who are watching this event with you. And so, if this is your first time here, we're No Code Ops, an international community for people working in operations and leveraging the power of no code and automation to become the heroes of their companies. And so, what we love doing here is to gather really expert speakers from the no code and automation and operation space out there to come and teach you all, to come and share their insights and knowledge with our community to help you get equipped with the skills necessary to become the best op that you can ever be. So, again, let us know if you're here watching us today. Maybe tell me about your role. Do you work in ops, and what kind of ops is that? And so today we're looking into sort of a new topic because we haven't talked about this before. And so that would be no code solutions for your BPO, which was a new topic for me, at least, which is business process outsourcing. And so, in order for me to better explain that to you, I'm just going to pull in our expert speaker today here, Caren Duane. Hi, Caren. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Great to have you here. And you're the head of operations, business operations at Avenue, right?
That is correct. I'm really excited to be here. I've been following no code ops for over a year, and I've been in the ops space for almost 10 years now. And really excited to tell you all about no code for managing large operations teams.
That's fantastic, and I love the fact that you've been in ops for such a long time because you will be the perfect example of somebody who works in ops and all of a sudden they were dropped the no code bomb or the automation bomb, and you're like, okay, how, what does that mean for my role? How do I transform into a no code operator, which is what we're trying to raise awareness about here at No Code Ops. So I was really really pumped to see the accepted our invitation to come and speak. And also I would love to learn more about Avenue, and so maybe if you could tell us a little bit about what the tool does.
Yeah, absolutely. So, excuse me, Avenue is a task queue for operations teams. So it is an alerting, playbooking, and reporting tool all in one place, and it's no code. So with Avenue, you create work from multiple sources. So imagine you query using SQL, using a visual query editor, or a form or Slack. And from there, you create work and then can track, assign, and automate it all in Avenue. I think it would actually be helpful if I tell you a little bit about my background before Avenue
Yeah, please do. Please
and
do.
how that.
Actually, walk me through that process of, you being an operations professional and then, starting to use no code, and maybe how you ended up, working for Avenue. I would love to see that
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely. So prior to Avenue, which I've been at for about a year and a half, I was on the BizOps team at Opendoor. Opendoor is a US real estate tech company, a prop tech company. Um, And what Opendoor does is it lets you buy and sell your home in the click of a button and skips the realtor. At Opendoor, I wore many hats as it was a startup. And one of the things I did was manage our BPO, which is the Business Process Outsourcing team. So basically, it was a way to save money on ops headcount. So we offshored the team. It was actually a team in Guatemala. And being on the ops side, we didn't have a ton of engineering capacity to help actually like uh, manage that team. So it was very much on the ops team, on myself to figure out like how do we create, assign, and track the work that this team of 50 people is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you a little bit about what the work was, and then I'll tell you about the tooling that I used to actually deploy work to them. So we had some repeatable event-based human in loop manual work. I know that was a lot of buzzwords, but my point here is like this was not work that could be automated. We needed a human on the other end. And it was also work that was very SLA dependent. So like once the event fired, we needed that work to get done within 2 hours. And the reason being is that the work stream was home offers. This was also at a time back in 2020 when the real estate market was super hot. So like if you didn't get your offer in, within 2 hours of a home going live, there was a good chance you were going to miss out.
Mm.
So
Wow, things have changed, eh?
absolutely, I think the SLAs are probably a little bit different now. But here's what the work stream looked like. When a new offer came in on a home, a workflow would get kicked off to this BPO team, which was like a set of like 10 steps that they needed to do to get that offer that our customer had said they wanted to. The customer says like, hey, there's a house in Durham, North Carolina. I want to pay $400,000 for it. Here's my information. They needed to take essentially that like JSON of information from the customer and turn that into an offer letter that gets emailed to the listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
And the way my team and I configured this is we had our BI tool, which was modes. Like we had a SQL query that said like select star from new offers with information. We then plugged that into Zapier, and we had a channel in Slack that would alert our BPO manager when a new offer came in. That manager would then manually assign the offer to one of their BPO operators who they knew was on that day. The team worked 7 days a week with like 5-day shifts. That person, the manager in Guatemala, had like a Google sheet with like schedules.
Right.
From there, the operator who was assigned would open up their um, Google Doc with the playbook of like, here are the 10 steps to follow. And within that, depending on the state, there are very like state specific real estate laws. There would be like what I'll call conditional branching. So like if it's California, you need to send this extra information. If Illinois, do this. If house is in a gated community, do XYZ.
Mm-hmm. That's a
The
lot
point,
of multiple steps.
yes, lot of steps and a lot of room for error.
Yeah.
Um, so high level, like this process was getting managed in Mode, our BI tool, Zapier, Slack, Google Sheets, a bit of Airtable, and then some like email automation using SendGrid. So myself as like the manager of this BPO, I would know when the work would get done because in my SQL query, I could see when the offer was submitted. But
Mm-hmm.
like between the offer kicking off and being submitted to the listing agent, I really didn't have a great idea of whether or not the playbook was being followed.
Right. So you didn't have an
Um,
overlook, an overview of whatever the process was like until the very end.
exactly. Nor did I have like in the moment idea of when SLAs were at risk of being breached. So what that
Mm.
means is like offer needs to go in within an hour during working hours. I didn't have a great idea of like if it was 50 minutes on the clock, um, if there needed to be intervention. Um, and so what I found is one, the like QA process for is our team doing this correctly was very time consuming. So I would have my team QA 10% of the offers randomly each week to make sure they were getting done correctly, which is wild. So, like QAing the work of the QA team. The second thing is when I got to our weekly business reviews and I was presenting to our executives in weeks where SLAs were missed, I didn't have great understanding of like why. I could say, okay, yes, I know like the team this week was slower, like maybe people were out. But unless I really dug and like built a SQL query to look into particular cases, I didn't know what was causing the drag
Mhm.
on those metrics. And even if I did know, like it was 5 days too late.
Right. And that's even, there it sounds as if there's so much work to be looked at, or, so much going on that you can easily just get wrapped in. And when did you have the haha moments where you were like, oh, actually, I have a solution for this. I can't wait. This is a great use case.
Yeah. So I guess fast forward, I ended up joining Avenue because the tool spoke to what I had um, kind of struggled with at Open Door,
Yeah.
which was uh, very ops heavy processes, managing teams, particularly remote teams, and then not having the engineering resources that you need, which as an operator, like that's commonplace. You
Mhm.
can't snap your fingers and have uh, tools built.
Yeah.
And so I ended up joining Avenue as our first business hire. I'm now head of biz ops here. Um, and what's really exciting about the tool is I lived through the pain of all these like sticky, inefficient processes, and now get to help customers onboard to Avenue, which instead of using 10 no code tools, it's just one, because
Mhm.
it has the alerting, the task flow, management, automation, and then reporting all in one place.
I love that so much. I love that it comes from a place of pain and
Yeah.
need, and that you were like, "Oh my God, this is such, this is what I needed." And then you ended up, being an advocate for the tool, which is the most beautiful and organic trajectory that I can think of.
Yeah, no, it's very fun. It feels like you're a little kid again getting to play with Legos. Um, and I think what's also team who passes us the like trigger information, and then the ops team who like goes and does the work. What
Hmm.
Avenue does is it actually just like um, combines those two roles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was looking for the website to share in the chat. Is it just the forum that I can see here on LinkedIn, or
Uh, Avenue, it's just avenue.app. I can
the
share it
app?
in the.
The app. Okay, so I can share that with everyone. I found it. Yeah, cool. So everyone can go ahead and have a look if they would like to. And in terms of today's topic, so your no-code solutions to BPO, did you have something that you wanted to show us?
Yes, I would love to show you what Avenue looks like so you can get a feel for like what it would be like to work out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I'm going to demo you is an example of something that a fraud ops team would use. So I'm going to
Okay.
show you the workspace and then I'll show you how it's set up.
Awesome.
Um, let me share my screen.
And again, if you're joining us, because I can see there's people watching us on LinkedIn and YouTube, which is great. I would love to know what kind of operator are you? Are you in the business team? Are you a different type of operator? Have you heard about Avenue before? And what are some of the struggles that you have right now at your job? I would love to hear all about that. And here I can see your screen. Perfect.
Great. So I'm going to walk you through. Imagine you are the manager of a BPO or a
Mm-hmm.
large operations team. If you wanted to know what is my team working on right now, you would come to your Avenue signals view. I would think of this as your ticket queue. So right now I'm in our fraud ops team because I'm the manager of the fraud ops team. Um, and I'm looking at all of the open signals or issues. So right now they're broken out by team member. I can see statuses. I can see when they were triggered. Ignore that this was a couple months ago. This is our demo workspace. And from here, I can actually click into tickets to see like, okay, um, what is going on here. And you'll see this underlying information is pulled from our Snowflake. So the trigger set up here is to say like whenever fraud is detected based on a couple of rules, send an alert. From there, you're going to see the playbook, which is to say The team needs to manually review this ticket for fraud. If fraud is identified, close the account, yes or no. And then from there, we have an automation which sends a ticket to Intercom for our customer support team to actually close the account. A couple of things to note, if I go back to our signals, back to our fraud ops view, as the manager, there are lots of different ways I can filter these views or group. If imagine I wanted to see by status instead. I can then look at metrics. So if I wanted to see like, okay, this account, like what percent is driving fraud from there, I can also look by assignee. So imagine you had a team of like 100 people. I could see what the workload looks like, and I can see the mean time to acknowledgement, mean time to resolution. I can also see what types of issues are coming up. Right now I have a filter on for this monitor. But if I remove that, I can see all the issues at play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to like rewind now and show you how this gets set up, because I think it gives a better understanding of what we're actually
Yeah, I
talking about.
love how it's sort of like a central tool for operations. So you have everything in one place, which is a trend that we've definitely seen around the no-code space right now, because there's so many different tools, right? So one of the comments that I get the most, when people join the community, it's how overwhelming it is to be in the ops space right now and having no code and sort of like such a variety of tools out there available, and you don't quite know which one is the right one, and just like, or having all your operations scattered in different tools. So it's great that you're trying to solve for that with this kind of unified solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what's unique about operations work is units of work get triggered from multiple sources. So you have your like SQL based alerts, like if something is breached, do this. You have things that come in through Slack. You have things that come in through forms, through emails. And what Avenue lets you do is take all of those event triggers and put them into one place.
Mm-hmm.
Let me actually just show you how you create, we call them monitors, but think of it as like a workflow. I'm going to pop in here and grab our logic. So creating a new monitor, we have a couple different monitor types. I'm going to call this one fraud. You can like pick your emoji, which is fun. And like I said, we have multiple ways to trigger workflows. These top three are all SQL based. Then you can also trigger from a customized form, from a webhook, or from Slack. So imagine anytime a customer writes into Slack, you want to create a ticket, you can do that.
Oh, nice.
For this purpose, we're going to do from SQL. Pulling in from Stripe, we connect to both like data warehouses, but also directly to tools. And this is the syntax to actually pull from Stripe here. And so you're going to see, like, similar to a BI tool, you get like your customers, amount, date, and the assigned account exec. And from here, I'm just identifying what do I want to trigger a new row. Like, is it whenever there's a new customer name or amount? In this case, I want it to be both customer and amount. I would think of that as like the unique green. And then from here, every 30 seconds, I want this to be rerunning this table to check if there are new cases of fraud. And so what I'm going to do here is say like new fraud detected for, and then pull in the customer name. You'll see down here, my fraud team runs out of Slack. So we're going to format the image in that way. And from here, I have my monitor trigger set up. And you'll see I have what we call a signal. So like the message is created. I actually want to create a ticket from here. And I want to assign our RevOps team, or excuse me, our fraud ops team. So our fraud ops team is configured in our teams page. It's 10 members of the team. They have their working hours set. And the assignment here is on a round robin basis. So let's say there are 10 new tickets, they each go to a new member who's on their shift.
Mm-hmm.
And then from here, I had talked about this idea of like when you work with a BPO, you don't always know, like, you know, when the work was triggered and when it was finished, but between start and end, you don't always know if the playbook or the SOP is followed.
Right. Because that
And
was your struggle initially, wasn't it?
exactly. And so we have this idea of your playbook. So imagine what you have in like Confluence, Google Docs, Notion. You can actually put that into Avenue. And so from here, what I'm doing is I'm going to add a subscriber, which is Slack, because like I said, my team lives in Slack. So the message is going to go to our fraud ops team in Slack, and it'll come up looking like a ticket. And from here, I'm going to add steps. So we have both ways to automate your playbook or add human in the loop steps. Given that the task I described earlier requires human in the loop, I'm actually going to show you what it looks like to set up the human in the loop. So for here, I'm going to say like manual review the fraud charges, and if fraud indicated, close account. And so voila, I've set up my first playbook block. Once the manual review is done, I'm also going to ask a question. So I'm going to say like, is this fraud? Yes, no.
Mm-hmm. I love that conditional logic kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, what I'm doing here is I'm setting this up as metadata so that I can create conditional branching from it. So from the like, is this fraud? If the answer is yes, what I can do later on is say, let's see, conditional branch, if fraud equals yes, then I'm going to create a ticket in Intercom, like I'd mentioned, to close out the account. So from Intercom, I have data event, I'm selecting our admin, and there you go. So what the playbook is doing is it's querying our Stripe data in Snowflake. It's saying if fraud is detected, which there are a couple rules. One is like if more than one address is used per email, or if a charge is over a certain amount.
And you set those rules somewhere.
I set those in the underlying SQL.
Right. Okay.
And from there, what's happening is a Slack message is getting sent to our team, because our ops team, our BPO, actually lives out of Slack. And it's auto assigning to a member in Slack. From there, it's kicking off this task, which is a manual review. Once the manual review is done, a question task arises. And then based on the answer to that, if it's yes, then a ticket is created in Intercom for a customer success team to close the account. And let me show you what the like task queue, so like what your operators would actually be working out of, looks like. So you're an operator, you come in here and you actually run through all of your tickets. So I'm like, okay, close this for fraud. I would open up the ticket and I can look at the information, and from there I can make a decision. It's like the human in the loop aspect of like, yes, no, close it. And we have tracking, so you can see like, okay, at 5:25, Caren closed the account. Yeah, I think that's like the high level. I know very feature dense.
It's quite straightforward to set up.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. And what I would say is like, this is something that if you were building an internal task queue could take months. But what we let you do in a no-code way is set up alerting and automation and task assignment in like 10 minutes.
And I saw that in the chat we have a couple people like Madi here, who's a co-founder, and he runs all the internal operations and internal data and analytics at his company. So I wonder, Madi, if you have any questions, feel free, and anyone else here, if you have any questions at any point in time, feel free to drop them in the chat. And how did it change when you started implementing, this new sort of process for you, Caren? Like, did you notice sort of obviously a higher level of productivity or um,
Yeah. So I would say a couple of things. One of which is in order to my the team became proactive because before we were scanning to look for outliers or issues. So what that looked like was writing SQL, running it in our BI tools, and actually having like calendar holds to check. Uh, Second is we had Zapier bots sending what I think became very spammy. So it'd be like, we think there's fraud, but there was no real assignee. So like
mhm.
no task follow up and no playbook compliance. And then the second thing is in trying to understand how the team was performing, I mentioned there was that like 10% of tickets each week were getting manually QA'd. With Avenue, you can actually see um, every step you can audit. So, particularly for something compliance related, whether that's QA or like know your customer or fraud, it's really helpful to have metadata on like every step that gets completed, who completed it, and what the outcome was
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
SLAs tied.
And would you say this is now your sole tool that you use for your to run your ops, or have you gone back to using Zapier and other things?
Yeah, no, I definitely don't use Zapier anymore. Um, I use Make for uh, purely for our cold outbound because
Hmm.
it's like great for things that are automated, pure automation, right? It's like grab email, send email, done. Where Avenue is helpful is where you need human in the loop, and also where you need to keep track of your tasks. So our entire team runs out of Avenue. We track
Hmm.
all of our rev ops, our sales enablement, our new product launches, and we do customer support as well because we have like channels with every customer, which is big in B2B SaaS these days. And with our Slack enabled trigger, we can create tickets anytime a customer writes in.
Yeah, brilliant. And I can see Maddie came back with a great question here. What's been the biggest challenge in rolling it out internally? As
Yeah,
in, what best practice should we do when trying to implement at the very beginning?
yeah, it's a great question. So I think one, you want to make sure you have your playbook on paper, right? So if you don't have process, it's hard to actually use an operations excellence tool. So anytime I onboard a new customer to Avenue, my recommendation is to fill out our onboarding form. Um, I'm happy to share what that looks like, or I can just explain it.
Yeah, no, feel
Um,
free to share your screen.
okay,
It's always nice to look into a sort of like hands-on demos.
okay, let me show you.
And I feel like that's the form that I was finding earlier on LinkedIn, isn't it?
Um,
Probably.
I am not sure.
Probably there's a CTA that sends you to a form, so I'm assuming that could be the one.
Okay. Give me one moment.
No worries, no worries. And I guess as this is sort of like more of a bit of a different event in terms of like I feel like we've already opened up to Q&A, right? Is that correct? So keep your questions coming. And again, this is a great use case for anyone working in ops, particularly BPOs. And so if you do have any questions, you can start dropping them in the chat. Let's keep it interactive.
Okay. So I'm going to show you. There's actually pretty simple. But what it's aimed at getting at is having your team write down where their gaps are. And like at Avenue, we
Great.
are ops experts. Like we always help our customers come up with like, what are you actually trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
Um, where are there gaps in your system, and where is there operational inefficiency? And by operational inefficiency, I mean, where do you have people scanning dashboards looking for work? Where are you spending a lot of your time being reactive? And then where in those like weekly or monthly business reviews are the metrics red? And like what can you do in the moment to catch those issues before they become uh, a discussion in front of your
Mm-hmm.
exec team?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, super simple. This is our onboarding checklist. And I would think of each of these rows as a monitor. So the fraud ops monitor I set up earlier, it would be one of these. And what you're doing here is actually just figuring out like, okay, what triggers the alert? So what's the business logic? What do you want to happen after? These are all really simple, but you could have it be like question, like yes, no, fraud, create Zendesk ticket if fraud. Um, Always want to justify why it's important because we do not want to be another Zapier, another spammy notification. That's not the intention for Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then rest of things fill out is like how often do you want to check for alerts, and then where are you triggering from? Is it SQL based, which is event or report? Is it from a form? Is it from webhook or from Slack? And a little bit more on forms. Forms are really helpful if you work with external vendors where you need them to report issues with some detail. So we work with a big food delivery company who has lots of vendors, and their vendor ops team will use the forms to report on like this market had this type of issue, barcode number, etc. And then you can use the forms data to help inform the playbook.
And in terms of the biggest challenge that you've had, like rolling it out internally or for somebody, think about like your ops teams right now, or
Yeah,
a company that's trying to experiment no code, because that's where we're at right now. There's people and companies that have fully adopted no code and automations, and then
yeah,
there's thousands of companies that still haven't, right? And so we're here trying to make them understand the benefits that they could get from no code and automating
yeah.
their processes. So would you say what could some of the challenges be in even having the buy-in from the company, to use such a tool?
Yeah. I think challenge one would be getting buy-in from engineering that this is actually going to make their lives much easier.
Hmm.
I think particularly a bigger company would have like an internal tooling team. So I would think of Avenue in a way of like we are augmenting or replacing some of what that team would work on. Um, like if they're building a task queue or any sort of custom alerting with integrations. So number one would be like buy-in from engineering. When I say buy-in, I mean like them being willing to give up their baby, which is the internal tooling, because Avenue is no code, so it doesn't require engineering help.
How do you convince them? Like, let's, even without thinking about Avenue for a minute, just like as a topic, because I'm very, very. This is something that could be applied to everything. How do we convince an IT team that actually no code? Because I feel like no code to them has got like this negative,
Yeah,
yeah, sort of connotation. So
yeah,
that's usually one of the topics that comes up in our conversations.
yeah. So I think showing them that you can give operators independence. I think oftentimes you have ops experimenting or rolling out new playbooks or workflows. And if you are able to give ops the independence to try those things out or figure out what is the perfect playbook without requiring tweaks on the engineering side, that's very powerful. Um, and second, you give your engineering team time back to focus on the core product instead of operations tooling, which I
Hmm.
think if you talk to most engineers, that's like their least favorite thing to work on in terms of front end software.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Should I get some questions going, or
Yeah,
did
let's
you
get them
have?
going. I
Let's
see
get
one
them
from
going.
Madi that I'm happy to answer to
Yeah.
begin with. So Madi's question is, what's the best use case to begin with that's simplest to understand and roll out? So I recommend starting with Avenue. We like to call it turning on the faucet. So you could put together a checklist of 100 things, but you should start with one. So, like one monitor. And what I would say, Madi, is what is causing your team the biggest headache? Go
Mm-hmm.
into Slack right now, and where is your ops team uh, having cases where they have like 50 Slack threads, like a one thread with 50 comments? And from there, I would extrapolate like what is the issue that's happening and how can you use Avenue to proactively detect it, assign that work, and automate certain aspects of it.
Yeah, I love that. Always going back to what the pain points are,
Yeah,
even before starting. And that's, something that we often suggest and encourage, our operators to think about. Even because the one question, or similar to Maddie's question here, what's the best use case we can present, or what's the best tool that we can start implementing? And we always try and go one step back and tell them what is it that you're trying to do? Because
yeah,
chances are there are some use cases that don't even need to be automated. It's just like a different type of issue. And there's not a solution that fits all, but what you really have to know is really what you're struggling with, where your team is having that blocker, and then you can find the solutions with all the tools.
exactly. And to give a little more detail, I would think of what is something that is event based, that is SLA dependent, and requires human in the loop workflows.
Hmm.
So when X thing happens, Y needs to get done within a certain amount of time. Where is your team spending too much time problem solving for that? Or where in your business metrics is there oftentimes red for operational metrics? That's where Avenue is helpful. And then specific use cases, I'll rattle off a few, but like we have lots of, if you have data, we have ways to make Avenue work. But for fraud detection, customer support, quality assurance, sales enablement, outlier situations, so high risk, low frequency events, vendor communications, marketplace imbalances, just to name a few.
Awesome. We also have another question here from Manan. So I'm just going to put it in the chat. How do you document your problem statement? That's another big topic in our community: documentation, process mapping. Do you document your problem statements?
Um, can you expand upon that? Do you mean in relation to Avenue or in my day to day?
I think it's more like, maybe how do you document, like, whenever, or your processes, your playbook, would that serve
Yeah.
you as a documentation, or do you use a separate tool or process to document that process?
Makes sense. So I love starting from Google Docs.
Uh-huh.
I've like tried lots of different things, but Google Docs feels like pen and paper. And so what I like to do and what I would recommend is get your process documented in Google Docs or Google Sheets if you need it to look more like a sequence. And from there, you can drag and drop into Avenue and we digitize your playbook. So instead of having your like Zapier alert and then needing to go look at your Google Doc of like, what do I do? Avenue puts that into one. So it'll say like, if you're buying a home in California and it's in a residential community, here's all the information that you need as an operator to actually complete the tasks at hand.
Brilliant. It made me smile that Google Docs is like pen and paper. I remember I was just at another event that I was hosting, and I think we were saying something like, "All right, now all we need is paper, and then we'll do this." And people were waiting for me to share a link to paper. I was like, "No, no, no, get paper, as in paper." That was wild. They were like, "Oh, what's paper? Paper as in a piece of paper." That made
Yeah,
me
and
laugh.
I mean, I think at the core, and if you don't have your ops process ironed out, no, like the fanciness of the documentation tool is not going to help improve that.
Yeah, it's all, the process mapping, the mental framework. You need to have a clear idea of, the alphabet of your operations, like ABC, and who does what and why and where. And then
Exactly.
you start drawing it out. And however, whatever you use, paper.com or any
Yeah.
other tool, it's great. It's just a great skill to master and just implement in your operations.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think where ops teams go wrong sometimes is spending too much time documenting and not enough time implementing. So, like, you could have an incredible playbook that's 20 pages long with every kind of outlier case. But if you're not able to actually like deploy that to your BPO or your ops organization, then all it is like a good playbook in Google Docs.
mhm. And obviously we have the usual AI question here from
Yeah.
this one is from Sam. So I'm just going to put it in the chat here. So he says, would AI replace the role of a BPO specialist?
Yeah. That's a great question. And my answer is no. So,
Mhm.
I use a lot of AI at work, so want to be clear, like I love AI and I think it has a lot of value to help augment, as particularly in operations. But there are certain tasks where a human in loop is necessary and is going to be necessary. Take, for instance, when a company is launching a new product, they need humans in the loop to give them feedback, particularly when things are low volume. So, like, I'll use Open Door again as an example. Their SKU was a home. So, like, they were not buying and selling millions of homes per day. And so that qualitative human in loop feedback was necessary. I would say the other case is where you don't have eng capacity to build something for you. And so you really want to get an understanding of like what should the playbook be. That's where you need the human in the loop to see like what are the tasks that are required.
Mhm. And it's always a matter of, how to use AI to be better at what you're doing today rather than kind of allowing it to replace you, right?
Exactly. Also, like there are certain things in ops workflows that should be automated, such as communication, analysis of issues, um, changes of status, like a ticket status.
Mhm.
So, want to be clear, like AI is important and will continue to be important in ops, but it's not going to replace your operator.
Exactly. Just people who know how to use it. We
Exactly.
we always say that. So you've got a fan here from LinkedIn, John Di Lorenzo says hi. um, Another question here from Dan. An interesting question, a bit more personal. Who is your role model? So you've had quite a fantastic career development there. You started in ops, now you're head of business operations at Avenue, which is a tool that you love. So
Mhm.
who is your role model for being better in your operations and leadership?
Yeah. My role model is a former manager from Open Door. Her name is Lean. She's a couple years older than me. And getting to watch her as an operator, she was uh, basically like managed the CX team at Open Door, which was a team of like hundreds of people. But seeing the way that she was incredibly detail oriented and always did her research up front and then had like very, very detailed playbooks before ever taking anything to product or to operations, um, showed me what it means to be both like very strategic but also operationally excellent.
I'd
Um,
love that so much. Maybe you should send me her contact. I would love to invite her for one of our episodes here. Sounds like
yeah,
a great
absolutely.
mentor.
Yeah, I also think she approached everything with a lot of humility. So she was managing these really large teams, but also working with execs and did a really good job of being like a normal human while also being really good at what she did.
Amazing, awesome. And something new that we recently implemented, we implemented it this year in our community at No Code Ops is mentorships as well. Because I've noticed I got inspired from the design space, which is, something that I navigate a little bit as well. And I realized that the no code and automation space could really benefit from some mentorship opportunities. And so
Yeah,
we just launched that in our community as well. We have 10 expert operators and consultants who are offering free mentorships to our fellow innovators, which is great.
that's awesome. I have found mentorship, particularly in the workplace, to be a really important part of my growth path.
Yeah, absolutely. And a tool question here from Brittany. She says, have you heard of Pixie Bricks? And how does it compare to other no-code tools for BPOs?
I have not. How do you spell that?
Pixie, as in pixie,
Okay.
and, and
I'll have
bricks
to
with
check
an
it out.
X. Yeah, we'll check that out, Brittany. But maybe if you are watching today's event, how does it compare? You tell us. Awesome. Let's see what else we have here. I have quite of a lengthy question, quite deep
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. How do you foresee the role of no-code and low-code platforms evolving in the enterprise landscape over the next 5 years? And what key skills should engineers focus on to stay relevant in this rapidly changing environment? And I'm going to write it down. Oh, Brittany is here, and she says it's similar but different. How does it differ? Tell us all about Pixie Bricks. So yeah, I just put it out there. So how do you foresee the role of no-code and low-code platforms evolving in the enterprise landscape over the next 5 years? And then how do you what key skills should engineers focus on to stay relevant in this changing environment?
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, no code evolving in 5 years. I think we're going to see the number of tools condensed. So there will be fewer, better tools. I also think they will be easier to set up. So you will have sort of like AI prompts to put together what you want. At Avenue, we're working on AI playbook builder, which we're launching next week. So what that lets you do is literally take your Google Doc playbook and drop it into Avenue, and then we create your steps. So both your like human in the loop steps, like a task or a form being filled out, and automations. So TLDR, there will be fewer, better AI enabled no code tools.
Tools, yeah, I agree. I think I agree. There's way too many right now, and just like too many things doing a similar serving a similar scope. So yeah, I would love to see a world where things get unified a little bit more, and tools that were set out to do the one function would just stick to that function and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the
And
tools that do it really well, I would call out like Framer is one of them. Like I think everyone who's building a website is going to use Framer, and Framer will grow and get much better um, because of that.
yeah, or yeah, don't even get me started on tools. I try to keep a neutral position here. Well, okay, so Brittany says it's a low-code browser automation tool, so similar in the sense of incorporate human in the loop, event-based automation, but it's more of a platform for making all sorts of workflows. Blah blah blah. Awesome. Yeah, maybe we'll look into them as well and get you guys a little walkthrough of what it does.
Yeah,
That'd
very
be
cool.
interesting.
I'll check it out.
And in terms of the key skills that you would recommend to an engineer to kind of stay relevant in the next 5 years, what would they
Yeah.
be?
So I'm not an engineer, but I will speak to what I've observed of the wonderful engineers that I work with. I think one is like continuing to learn. So that's doing like independent learning, whether that's reading or watching YouTube or attending conferences.
Or
I think
joining our academy at No Code
or
Ops?
or joining your academy. I think being an engineer is similar to being a doctor. Like once you get your degree or your first job, that's not where the learning ends. And only like the best of the best are those who continue to learn and read about work things on the weekend. And then I think second is getting a good understanding of AI and how to apply it in the workplace. I don't think anyone is going to get a job in 2024 and beyond without having a deep understanding of how to build AI tools and how to apply them. And then
Mm.
also how to build tools for non technical folks with AI.
Would you say that's part of your next goals and like next professional development as well as an operator?
Yeah, absolutely. And I use AI in many aspects of my job, both like ops specific and like sales and customer service. I've probably played around with like 100 plus like AI specific tools or tools with AI. I think
Wow.
a lot of them are junk right now, but there are some really good ones. Um, but I've certainly spent a lot of time this year wasting time on with AI tools. So I actually think it's worth for operators waiting a bit to see what's actually going to come out on top.
See what happens. Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there something that you wish you would have done, at the very beginning of your career? Is that something that you would have done any differently, maybe?
Oh, that's a good question. Um,
Because your journey is very inspiring, and I get to talk with operators every day, and they all come from different departments, different stories, and they're all trying to like navigate their ways into this new automation space. And just like as we were saying, like the next 5 years, what does that even look like? I wonder
yeah.
if, yeah.
This is kind of a random one, but I wish I had spent more time talking to customers.
Hmm.
I think we too often dive into tools before understanding like who we're actually serving or building for. And I also think it shouldn't just be the role of researchers or customer success at a company to be talking to customers. Um, I think I would have had a better idea of how to actually build with no code if I knew like the core of the problem and those people giving you low CSAT or MPS scores, like why was that? And was there anything you could um, build to protect against bad reviews in the future?
Yeah, no, makes total sense. And again, I guess I would add to that as well. Like for me, it was just like I started doing all of this on my own, and it was just feeling everything was feeling a little bit too big just for with the one person. So
Y-
I ended up building communities for people, which is great. But now anyone, I would highly encourage anyone to just like join a community, join a group of people that are trying to achieve similar goals or they have a common interest, because you can get so much growth just from communicating what you're trying to do or the struggles that you have. Is so important. And there's so many resources out there available for free, not free, and even having so much knowledge available could be overwhelming. So
Yeah.
just even having a chat with somebody or attending these events could really help you in your careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think human interaction, whether it's online in this format or in real life, is the best thing you can do for your career.
Awesome. Well, Karen, I guess this is it for today. We're almost at time. So thank you so much, for taking the time to come and share a little bit about your journey, your experience, and the beautiful work you do at Avenue, and just like how an amazing operator you are. So really grateful to
Thank you.
have you here.
It was so great to be here. And if anyone wants to chat more, you can reach me on LinkedIn.
Yes,
Happy
let me
to chat
share that.
no code, chat BPO operations, and workflow automation.
Absolutely. Let me share your contact straight away. And you're welcome, Stephen. Here's do connect with Karen. She's a lovely human, as you've seen today, and always very happy to chat. And same here with us today at No Code Ops. We're always a DM away in our Discord community. So if you're out there trying to navigate the operations field by yourself, do join us and yeah, come and have some fun every Thursday here with our No Code Ops live community shows. Caren, again, such a pleasure, and I wish you a fantastic day ahead and a great week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.